So back during one of the Steam Next Fest, I was immediately drawn to a little game called Tinykin. Its art style oozed charm, and from the screenshots, the game looked like a Pikmin style game, a type of game we unfortunately don't get enough of. I loved the demo. It brought all the charm the screenshots suggested and gave us a glimpse at a small but promising world to explore. Now, having played the full game, I can say it totally lives up to that promise. You play as an astronaut named Milo who teleports himself down to explore a new planet. Upon teleporting, he finds himself in a gigantic house. Or maybe he's just small because the house is populated by insects who have created their own societies and religions within this house. It's got a very Toy Story / Honey I Shrunk the Kids vibe, as you explore a very normal, average house but from a completely new perspective as your character is the size of an ant. And you get to experience this whole new world that exists just under the surface of the real one, a world, a home these bugs have created in this seemingly abandoned house. They've built these big, the quote unquote big churches and museums in the living room and kitchens of this home, and it's just kind of wonderful to explore this tiny little world that manages to feel so grand. And you slowly uncover this world and its lore as you explore. The bugs worship the owner of the home as a god, and you get to see how his life influenced these bugs and their own culture. There's only about 5 areas to explore, and a couple smaller ones I wouldn't consider their own level. Each one is a different room of the house, so one's the living room, another's a bedroom, etc. But each one is treated like its own little world, with different characters, problems, and nooks and crannies to explore. They're all different cultures too, like the living room is mostly populated by these beetles, and they're all very religious. They've built this big church in the middle of the room, and they all worship this song they can all hear, and they want you to help them play this CD, but they don't know it's a CD, they just think it's this holy relic, and you help them figure out what to do with it. But over in the bathroom, all those bugs are just like hippie party animals, and you gotta help them put on a sick party. Oh, and ease political tensions between them and the bugs of another room. They're kinda like that neighbor that always blasted music late at night. But it's all done in a very silly, charming way. Like, it's never dark, it's a cartoon, everything is solved with like cake and friendship. But it's super charming in that way. The world building is just really fun and charming, and a lot of it you get to explore on your own, which I like. I just enjoyed being in this world. And a lot of that charm comes from the game's art style. It has a very Paper Mario look to it. The characters are all 2D while the environments are all 3D. It looks cute. We're starting to get more games with that kind of art style. Cult of the Lamb also has that. I guess we've just gone to that point where my people, the millennials, the stuff we grew up with is starting to become nostalgic, and now enough of us are in the industry to influence it, and I'm totally here for that. I'm here for new art styles. I do like pixel art and all, but I think it's just time we started experimenting with new styles, and the papercraft style of this and Cult of the Lamb looks really cool and unique, and I feel like you can do so much with it. Cult of the Lamb uses it to mix cute and scary, and Tinykin is just pure cute, and it sells this feeling like you're in another world that exists alongside ours really well. It also makes all the insect NPCs a lot less gross for people that are afraid of bugs. And I just love the creativity of these levels being made out of everyday household objects. Platforms are cups and rulers, large toys and cupboard doors act as obstacles, whole towns are built from bookshelves and bars into cat trees, and your goal is usually to just gather very benign objects like goggles and tea diffusers. Your character has a little bar of soap they ride on like a skateboard. That must be the brand new Flint soap. Clean your body and light a campfire all in one bar, and you grind along spiderwebs with it too. I love the creativity that goes into the level design. It reminds me of when I watched Toy Story as a kid and saw a world very similar to mine, but through the lens of a toy, making normal household objects and occurrences seem so grand and alien, and Tinykin does that as well. Its world is technically tiny, but feels so deep and big and ripe for exploration. At its heart, Tinykin is a 3D platformer. Each level is a new room of the house that you can run around in and explore at your leisure. There's little side quests, usually only 3 or 4 per level, that usually require you to gather things or place things around the map, and there's enough pollen scattered around the map to collect to give anyone with a pollen allergy secondhand symptoms. There's very little in your way of discovering everything in a room. Once you get to a new room, the game will give you all the tools necessary to find everything in that room. It's just a matter of exploring enough. Any areas that seem blocked off, you just have to look around a bit and solve a simple puzzle to open it up. This is a very forgiving game. There are no enemies to fight. It's all about platforming. You can die if you fall too far, but you'll usually just immediately respawn right on the ledge you fell off of, and even if you do fall, you have this bubble ability. After you jump, you can press and hold the jump button again to make this bubble appear around you, allowing you to float for a limited time. You can upgrade the time you can float by gathering pollen and giving it to this bug who turns it into, I think, beer for bugs? I would definitely recommend this game for kids, but there's also a few things in here for adults, like the beer making bugs, for example. Anyways, if you're falling, you can just tap the jump button to make a bubble appear and save yourself, but sometimes it's just better to die because you respawn where you initially fell. The only thing you're kind of locked off from is that there's these side missions in each room that require your bubble to be at a certain level. But even then, there's more than enough pollen to upgrade in each room. And since the game always gives you all the tools you need for each room, there just wasn't much reason to go back. There's only a handful of side quests for each room, and you probably completed them or close to all of them on your first go around. And once you upgrade the bubble, there's just not much reason to gather any more pollen, which is a shame because this game has a little hook called the Tinykin that made me wish there was a reason to go back to old rooms. Tinykin are like Pikmin. They're these little guys you find scattered around each room, and they follow you around. There's a bunch of different types of Tinykin, and they're necessary to do the game's puzzles. It is very satisfying to gather up Tinykin and see them following you around, so you often have dozens or even hundreds of Tinykins around you at all times, amassing a never-ending horde to conquer the world, or something like that. It also keeps the exploration rewarding. If it were just the pollen to collect, that'd get kind of boring after a while. Numbers go up is nice and all, but there's something about seeing an army grow as more Tinykin begin to follow me that always felt satisfying, even when you have far more than you need. Like, there's way more Tinykin in each room than you could ever need, and since Tinykin don't follow you to another room, you get to build your horde of followers all over again. To be clear, that's a good thing. I like exploring and expanding my army of Tinykin, it's satisfying, and almost every room introduces you to a new type of Tinykin. There's 4 types in total, and each one does something different. Pink Tinykin, for example, are used to carry and push objects out of the way. They're the most Pikmin-like of all of them. You'll often find objects you need to progress, and they'll need a certain number of Tinykin to move, so you go and search for more pink Tinykin, so you can throw them onto the object where your Tinykin will dutifully carry it to where it needs to go. There's Tinykin that build bridges, ones that complete electrical circuits, and ones that explode, and not like walk over, plant a bomb, come back and they're fine, like kaboom and they're gone, no more. It's a fun kids game that just, occasionally has sentient creatures exploding themselves. Wholesome. All the different kind of Tinykin are really cool and allow for different types of puzzles, and that's why I wish you could just go back to old rooms with new Tinykin. I think it would have been cool if you saw like an outlet in the first room and you didn't know what it was until you got the blue Tinykin later on, which can interact with it, and you remember that outlet in the first room and go back to it. Add in that dash of Metroidvania just to give me a reason to go back to earlier rooms, because right now there just isn't. I completed all the side missions my first time through and collected pretty much all the pollen and collectibles, so I just have no reason to go back. But the thing is, I want to go back. I enjoyed the game enough that I'm looking for excuses to be in that world more. So the game is a little easy. It's certainly not for the hardcore platforming fans. It's more for people who like to explore an interesting world and just sort of take in that world and its charm. But because I always knew I could accomplish any puzzle, it created a nice flow for the game. If I set my sights on something, I knew I could complete it. I didn't have to advance any further in the story to unlock things. I could just do it, make my way through the game, and enjoy myself. Tinykin is paced well, it's charming, and it proves that great things can indeed come in tiny packages. Speaking of small, I'm a small channel and would really appreciate a sub. Thank you and have a good one.